Hello, hello! Today we have a party! 70 years, for 7 decades, our National Health Service has provided first-rate healthcare for us all, while other rich countries like the US, their people have lived in fear, seeing their medical costs spiral. We've known that getting sick would mean going under for them, swallowed by debt. Friends, this is something we should be proud of here, something we will fight for. This is something we will fight for today. But as we all know, make no mistake, our NHS is under attack. Cuts, privatisation, they are undermining the health service that we hold dear. Waiting times getting longer, hospitals being downgraded, staff under strain. Friends, it's time to say no more. Here in Weston, what has happened is shameful. Your A&E was closed under the cover of night. A cowardly act. You were told it was temporary. 1 year on, well, where is it? My dad was at the founding of the NHS. He was there at Normandy, and then he joined the NHS when it was formed. He was a doctor all his working life. My son, who's here with me today, is disabled. His life has been saved by the NHS. Friends, the NHS should be there when we need it most, alongside us at our most intimate, special and important times, giving us care, giving us reassurance, giving us hope. There when our children are born, there in times of crisis, there holding our hand at the passing of a loved one. Friends, for all of us, when it comes to the NHS, the personal is political, and we say no to those who want to take that away from us. And today is a day for telling the truth. There is only one reason for this crisis in our health service. There is only one place to put the blame, and we know where that is. Friends, is it the disabled? No. Is it the old? No. Is it inefficiency? No. Is it bed blockers? No. Is it the doctors and nurses? No. Is it our migrant communities? No. No, friends, it is this Tory government. They say there's no magic money tree, but there's money for a third runway at Heathrow, there's money for Trident, there's money to subsidise commercial arms sales, there's money to give tax to big corporations, there's money for unnecessary nuclear power stations, there's money to subsidise the fossil fuel industry, there's money to expand HS2, which is tearing apart communities, there's even money for other political parties like the DUP, if it means keeping the Tories in power. Friends, there is money to invest in our NHS. There's money to keep the health service free, to abolish prescription charges, to reintroduce free eye tests, to give free dental treatment for all, to give free social care. And you can be sure as hell there's money to reopen accident and emergency departments here in Weston. We don't need to privatise. We don't need to sacrifice the NHS on the failed altar of austerity. We don't need to subsidise the insatiable greed of corporate Britain by handing over our health service piece by piece. I pledge that Greens will oppose any attempt to create a two-tier health service here. The quality of your care should not depend on the depth of your pocket. We are not consumers. We are not shoppers. We are not numbers on a spreadsheet. We are human beings, and we deserve to be treated like it. Friends, it's people like us, not profit, that makes our country what it is. It's everyday heroes like our NHS staff that make Britain great. Our NHS doesn't just serve our country, it embodies what our country should be. Over 100,000 non-British nationals amongst NHS staff. And you know what? Let's say this proudly. You are more likely to be treated by a migrant than behind one in the NHS queue. There are people working for our NHS from all over the world, from every race, every colour, every creed. People who represent this rich, beautiful tapestry of modern British life. We won't let their jobs be threatened by privatisation and cuts. We won't let them be treated with blatant disrespect by Jeremy Hunt. They care for us. Today, we're here to show that we care for them. We are marching to protect our vital public services. We are marching to stand up for that greatest of British institutions. Friends, together we can take back control of our health service. Together we can protect our NHS for our children and our children's children. Here's to the next 70 years. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Jonathan. A stirring speech there, but I got one problem with what you were saying there. You just said it's about money, and I mean I read in the local paper yesterday. It says in here the problem isn't money. It has already got the budget to run 24/7. So, oh, hang on a sec. That's John Penrose's column. My mistake. Without further ado, another party that stands wholeheartedly behind the NHS is the Labour Party, and I'd like to introduce Tim Taylor of the Labour Party.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for supporting our demonstration today. I'm going to begin by reading two notices. The first is from someone you may well have heard of, Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party. This is a personal message of support from Mr Corbyn. I want to express my support for the people of Weston-super-Mare and North Somerset in their fight to keep Western General A&E and maternity services open 24 hours a day. I can promise you that when a Labour government is elected, we will make absolutely sure that we reverse the last 8 years of Tory NHS austerity and provide enough doctors and nurses to staff hospitals like Western General properly. That's the message from the top. I've just been passed a second message from the local police. They're asking for help from the public. Get near the mic. It's the cutman. Yes. So, I've just been passed a second message from the local police. They're asking for your help in a missing persons hunt. The person who's missing is a middle-aged white man, about 6 foot tall, who answers to the name of John. You may not see him today. He was last seen in a swimming pool in the Weston-super-Mare area, asking if he could possibly have an audience with the head of NHS Improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a message from the leader of the Labour Party. I know we've got a message from the leader of the Lib Dems. We've got Jonathan Bartley here. Why can't our MP stand up for Weston? You ask him that. Because if he won't stand up for Weston, there are plenty of people who will. Yeah. We will. And we will win this battle. Now, this week's events have been underpinned by the strapline of celebrate and demonstrate. We celebrate 70 years of the NHS. As Jonathan just said, we all have great family stories. In my case, my father got a triple heart bypass 1 month before his 80th birthday. It gave him 7 or 8 years of additional good health. I thought this was fine and it was great, but when talking to a friend who's from Russia, she said, well, actually in my country, we wouldn't do that for elderly people. So ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we take for granted what we have, regardless of your age, regardless of your background, regardless of how much money you've got in your bank account, you will get treatment free at the point of delivery. Or will you? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we might be celebrating, but I don't think we can celebrate in future unless we demonstrate. We already know, looking at the last year, and thanks to the journalists of the Western Mercury, that we were totally misled a year ago by the hospital management and leadership about the plans for closure. They misled us, we suspected it, now it's out in the open and they have questions to answer. We are a community that's been shortchanged, and I say to everyone in Weston, please raise your expectations. Don't let this become the new normal. We deserve better, but we are going to have to fight for it. We're a growing town. We have new houses going up, families moving here. A mile from here, there's some of the highest concentration of care homes in the UK. The NHS tells us that 1 in 3 people aged over 85 need hospital to go to hospital every year. We don't have that in Weston. It's an absolute outrage. So, ladies and gentlemen, what can you do about this? Well, I say there are 3 things. Firstly, engage with the media. They are sympathetic. They're on our side a lot. Write to your newspaper. Talk to the radio stations. Get on TV. Secondly, write to the people who are in the bubble in Weston Hospital, the leadership team. Get on their case. Write to them. Challenge them about their version of events. Attend trust meetings and attend our demonstrations. And then finally, join and support our group. We have a small, dedicated group of volunteers who've kept this going for a year, but we need new ideas, we need new people, and going a bit Bob Geldof for a minute, we do need your money, so please support us. And also share your story. You've heard Jonathan's story, you've heard my story. There are great stories about the NHS. My ambition, ladies and gentlemen, is that we will be stood here again in 10, 20 and 30 years' time to celebrate. But ladies and gentlemen, we have to do the other half. We have to demonstrate for those celebrations to take place. Thank you for listening. Keep fighting for Weston.
Many thanks, Tim. I'm probably going to disagree with absolutely every speaker, because Tim sort of mentioned about going all Bob Geldof. I mean, personally, we'd probably go all Bob Geldof anyway, because we pay our taxes. So I think if we employ a few more tax inspectors to go and hit the people who are dodging, evading their tax, we'll have more than enough to pay for the NHS. So rather than go Bob Geldof, let's do Bob Geldof. Right, moving on. I mentioned earlier about the birth of the NHS, well, birth of the welfare state. You're probably going back to the start of the last century, and it was the grand old Liberal Party that did this. So it's only fair and it's only appropriate that we have a representative of the Lib Dems here, and somebody who's taken a very, very full and active part in the whole fight to preserve Western A&E. I'll just read a brief message from Vince Cable. Tim mentioned that we've had messages from most of the leaders of the main political parties. So Vince says, the overnight closure of Weston-super-Mare's emergency unit is another symptom of the crisis in our NHS. Every day seems to bring yet more bad news about the state of the health service, and patients are paying the price. Despite talk of the fictional Brexit dividend, ministers have no idea how they will fund the NHS, to the extent top NHS officials tell us it is necessary. It's time to give the NHS and social care the extra cash desperately needed. Mike Bell.
Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay? It's fantastic to be here again. We were here, of course, in the autumn protesting. The weather was slightly different then, but unfortunately the state of our local NHS services is very much the same. But the question I want to ask is, this has been a fantastic cross-party event, and a big thank you to our friends and colleagues from the Labour Party and the Green Party for so much work that's gone into organising these events. But where are the Tories? Because it's not just John Penrose, is it? Where are the Tories? Where are the Tory councillors? Where are the Tory activists marching with us in the streets to protect our services? Because they say, don't they, that they're happy with the way things are. They say that they don't want our A&E to close overnight. In fact, John Penrose, it was mentioned earlier in his column this week, said money isn't a problem, money isn't the issue. It's funny, isn't it, how those with the deepest pockets are often the first to make that phrase. But if money isn't the issue, what is the issue? Well, actually, it's still the fault of this government, isn't it? Because the issue is a chronic lack of a long-term strategic plan for the NHS. a lack of investment in recruiting the right staff in the right places, right-wing anti-foreigner policies that stop the NHS recruiting from overseas, cuts to student nurse bursaries, and a failure to have a long-term plan for investing in the NHS. So it's not just about money, absolutely, but it's certainly a key part of the equation. And I think we really have felt the heat today from the Sun, and we need to make sure that John Penrose and the Conservatives feel the heat going forward. I sit in the town hall in meetings with Labour and Green and independent councillors all the time, and I think we all feel the need to spend quite a lot of our time banging our heads on the table, because you sit there, and only this week we were sat in a meeting where Conservative councillors wring their hands about the state of local services, and they can't understand how it can be that we're not fairly funded, and how it can be that the services have had to be cut. And you ask them, well, you know, why are you a member of the Conservative Party? Why do you keep voting Conservative? Why do you stand for election for a party that is doing this to local services? And they've got no answer, and they accuse you, just as John Penrose has accused us today, of being party political and trying to bash the government. Well, I'm sorry, we are being political, and we do want to bash the government, because it's their bloody fault. And absolutely, and we've got elections. I've just been reminded, as if I needed a reminder, we've got district council elections in May next year. So please, 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 think carefully about who you vote for. We're not all the same, we don't all believe the same things, and we've really got to make a change. Because there are real implications for this. We know that locally, the demand for A&E services is going up. We know that our population is growing. We know that preventative services and community services have been cut back. So in the ward I represent, here in the heart of Weston-super-Mare, we've had GP services closed. We've had our NHS walk-in centre closed, and Jeremy Hunt was no help whatsoever in trying to save that service. The consequences are there for us to see now, and it cannot go on. The NHS is 70 years old this week. Emergency medicine predated that. At the beginning of the war, when emergency medicine was in its infancy and troops on the battlefield were given that urgent care that they needed, and back at home, victims of bombing and the Blitz were given emergency care on the streets by emerging health professionals from which the NHS grew. We know how vital NHS services are. Healthcare is a right, it is not a privilege. And that is a right that extends to all of us all the time. That means that day and night those emergency services are available, and we will continue to fight and campaign to make sure that that happens. Thanks for coming out. I hope you've had a good time, and come on England!
Many thanks, Tim. Thank you all for turning up. We had another message of support, and I'm just going to read a bit of this out because I think it sort of sums up a lot of why we're actually here. It's from Claire Moody, who's a Labour MEP for the South West, but she said, I wholeheartedly support the campaign to reopen Western A&E overnight, and this is the key thing. Our NHS is the greatest institution this country has. In its 70th year, we should celebrate lives at this stake and lengthened. We need to give it the funding it needs, the support it deserves, and pay tribute to the staff from here and afar who work tirelessly to help us all get better. The threat of closures, underfunding and the risks of Brexit mean we must stand taller and shout louder than ever in defending the NHS. But I know with the support of people like yourselves, we can ensure that the jewel in our crown is here for at least another 70 years and hopefully much more. As a great man once has said, the NHS will last for as long as people are prepared to fight for it. You people here ought to give yourself a big round of applause because you're prepared to fight for it. And what are we fighting for? Who's A&E? Exactly. Thank you very much. Any support that you can give the campaign is brilliant. There's some buckets going around at the moment because these things cost money. So if you could contribute to the bucket collection, that would be absolutely brilliant. But other than that, have a really, really nice day and enjoy the day. And I hope it all works out brilliantly for you unless you happen to be Swedish. Thank you.